acquire them. There's not much more to say about it. So I have a bunch of books here that I wanted to share with you. These are all books that I haven't read yet, except for one which I'm reading right now. And they're all books that I've got in the past, like, month, I would say. So I've also acquired all these books by lots of, like, different means. So the first group of books I'm going to show you is from the little free libraries in my neighborhood. So, in my city, we have little free libraries, and people have them, like, in their yards, and sometimes there'll be some, like, in, like, pea patches, but they're just little free libraries, and so people will put their personal books that they want to get rid of into these little free libraries, and then the idea is take a book, leave a book. So you can take as many books as you want from the little free libraries, with the idea that once you finish them, or once you finish another book, you'll return it to the library. And so it's a really great free resource for finding some good books. Obviously, you have no idea what you're going to find, but for me, I think it makes it more fun. I've recently discovered where all the little free libraries in my neighborhood are, and I like go to them when I'm walking pretty frequently, because I just love I love hunting for books. It's so much fun. So the first book that I'm going to show you is called Dead Girls by Alice Bolen. And this book is essays on surviving an American obsession. And this book is actually the uncorrected proof, not for sale. So this is like the copy that they send to booksellers, so that, like, I think so that the booksellers will know what they're talking about, like, when they start selling the books. Do you know what I mean? So, in her debut collection, Alice Bolen turns a critical eye to literature and pop culture, the way media consumption reflects American society, and her own place within it. From essays on Joan Didion and James Baldwin to Twin Peaks, Britney Spears, and Serial, Bolen illuminates our widespread obsession with women who are abused, killed, and disenfranchised, and whose bodies, dead and alive, are used as props to bolster a man's story. From chronicling life in Los Angeles to dissecting the quote-unquote dead girl show to analyzing literary witches and werewolves, this collection challenges the narratives we create and tell ourselves, delving into the hazards of toxic masculinity and those of white womanhood. Beginning with the problem of dead women in fiction, it expands to the larger problems of living women, both the persistent injustices they suffer and the oppression that white women help perpetrate. Sharp, incisive, and revelatory, Dead Girls is a much-needed dialogue on the woman's role in the media and in our culture. So, I'm pretty stoked to read this. The next book is a book that I remember Lily Whispers talking about, like, in, I don't know, 2015. And this book is called The Defining Decade: Why Your 20s Matter and How to Make the Most of Them Now. So, I started this book, and it was fine. I am in my 20s, and I go back and forth between being really concerned that I'm not doing the right thing, and then being like, you know, I'm on my path, I'm figuring it out, and I don't need to be perfect in that. And so I feel like sometimes when I'm like, oh my god, I'm not on the right path, that's kind of when I was like, oh, I need to read this book. And now I'm a little bit more like, I'm doing what I need to do. But I do think it'll be an interesting read when I decide to read it. You know what I mean? But I picked it up because I remember Lily was talking about reading it when she was like closer to my age. I'll just read the back, I guess. Or read part of it. I'm not intent on reading the whole thing. Our 30 is the new 20 culture tells us that the 20-something years don't matter. Some say they're an extended adolescence. Others call them an emerging adulthood. But 30 is not the new 20. Dr. Meg Jay, a clinical psychologist, argues that 20-somethings have been caught in a swirl of hype and misinformation, much of which has trivialized what is actually the most transformative period in our adult lives. Drawing on more than 10 years of work with hundreds of 20-something clients and students, The Defining Decade weaves the latest science of these years usually have one-ish nonfiction book going, and then one-ish fiction book going. And right now I have 2 nonfiction books going and 1 fiction book. But I always go faster in the fiction because it's, you know, especially right now, it's nice to have stories and other worlds to step into. Once I finish my next nonfiction, I think that will be on my list. The next book I was so excited to find in a little free library. This book is called Untamed, and it's a memoir by Glennon Doyle. This book is about it's a memoir about like finding yourself and about I'll just read the inside because I don't really know. I don't want to speak on something that I don't really know about. Okay, there is a voice of longing inside of each of us. We strive so mightily to be good partners, daughters, mothers, employees, and friends. We hope all this striving will make us feel alive. Instead, it leaves us feeling weary, stuck, overwhelmed, and underwhelmed. We look at our lives and wonder, wasn't it all supposed to be more beautiful than this? We quickly silence that question, telling ourselves to be grateful, hiding our discontent even from ourselves. For many years, Glennon Doyle denied her own discontent. Then, while speaking at a conference, she looked at a woman across the room and fell instantly in love. 3 words flooded her mind. There she is. At first, Glennon assumed these words came to her from on high, but soon she realized they had come to her from within. This was her own voice, the one she had buried beneath decades of numbing addictions, cultural conditioning, and institutional allegiances. This was the voice of the girl she had been before the world told her who to be. Glennon decided to quit abandoning herself and to instead abandon the world's expectations of her. She quit being good so she could be free. She quit pleasing and started living. Soulful and uproarious, forceful and tender, Untamed is both an intimate memoir and a galvanizing wake-up call. It is the story of how one woman learned that a responsible mother is not one who slowly dies for her children, but one who shows them how to fully live. I'm really excited to read this book. I love a queer story. It also talks about eating disorders and just living authentically, and I think that's a lesson we can all serve to learn from and emulate, you know what I mean? So my next book is a book that one of my friends gave me, or she loaned it to me, but it's one of her favorite books, and this book is called This Is How It Always Is by Lori Frankel. And so I'll read the little back thing. This is Claude. He's 5 years old, the youngest of 5 brothers, and loves peanut butter sandwiches. He also loves wearing a dress and dreams of being a princess. When he grows up, Claude says he wants to be a girl. Rosie and Ben want Claude to be whoever Claude wants to be. They're just not sure they're ready to share that with the world. Soon, the entire family is keeping Claude's secret, until one day it explodes. So, my friend really loved this book as a story of a queer story and a trans story, and I don't really know much more about it, but I'm looking forward to reading it. The other day, I was going to pick up some food that I got for takeout, and it wasn't ready yet, and there was a bookstore right next door, and so I was like, oh, I'll just go in the bookstore for a few minutes and peruse. And you know, that means that I ended up buying 3 books, and doesn't really matter that I should not be buying books. It just really just happened, so it's okay. I'm looking forward to reading all of them. And they're all, well, actually, that's not true. I was gonna say they're all books that have been on my list, and that's not 100% true. Only one of them has been on my list, but whatever. I also have this thing that when I get books, and especially when I get like a collection of books, like when I go to the bookstore and I decide I'm gonna get 3 books, like, doesn't happen very often, but it happened a couple weeks ago. I'm very intent that the 3 books, or the collection of books, they have to look nice together. Like, and this is super dumb, and like, I don't suggest it, but they do. So let me show you the stack of 3, and then we'll go through them. Okay, I don't want to be too loud with them. Alright, here we go. Here we go. Okay, here's the spines, and then let me just... alienation and cruelty that comes with being a functional person under advanced global capitalism, and the compromised pleasures and irreducibly personal meaning to be found in claiming some stability in a terrible world. Ling Ma has written one of my favorite novels of the year. So, I think this is a novel about the end of the world, but I will let you know more once I read it. I'm very excited. It's also just like a beautiful cover. It looks like it's like an office file, do you know what I mean? And then so does the spine. It says Severance. And then at the bottom it says a novel. It's like one of those library stamps. So I'm excited about her. Next, I'll show you the book that I'm reading right now. This book is called Writers and Lovers by Lily King. And I've read a lot of books this year, and a lot of very good books. And this book is one of my favorite books I've read in a very long time. So far, you know, I'm this far through, so. But it's hard to explain why, because I'll read you the back, but it's not really the story or the content specifically that is feeling close to me. It's the style of writing, and I just feel like this really deep connection with the main character. So quality of writing very high. I'll read the back. Blindsided by her mother's sudden death and wrecked by a recent love affair, 31-year-old Casey Peabody has arrived in Cambridge, Massachusetts in the summer of 1997 without a plan beyond a determination to live a creative life. Written with King's trademark humor, heart, and intelligence, this is a transfixing novel that explores artistic passion, ambition, and the terrifying and exhilarating leap between the end of one phase of life and the beginning of another. Writers and Lovers is an unforgettable portrait of an artist as a young woman. And this was written by the author of Euphoria, so I didn't realize that Euphoria was also a novel or a series, I don't really know, but this woman also wrote that, and I don't know if I can convey in words how good this book is, but I would say just like read it. Like, it's incredible. I feel like I'm very much at the end of one phase of life and beginning another one, and it's really just hitting the sweet spot of books, you know what I mean? The next book, and the last one that I got at the bookstore, is called This One Wild and Precious Life by Sarah Wilson, and I was drawn to this book when I saw it at a bookstore a while ago, just because it's super beautiful. The cover is like collaged, or it seems like it. It's like, can you see what I mean? And so she wrote another book about anxiety, which is called First We Make the Beast Beautiful, and this book, the subtitle is The Path Back to Connection in a Fractured World, and I'm pretty sure she wrote this in the past year or so during the pandemic. Oh, here we go. I can read you the inside cover. Will you sleep through the revolution, or are you ready to wake up and reclaim your one wild and precious life? We live in overwhelming times. Global problems like climate change, political polarization, social injustice, and the coronavirus pandemic have left many of us in a state of spiritual PTSD. We have retreated morally and spiritually, and we are experiencing a cultural crisis of disconnection from one another, from our true values, from joy, and from life as we are meant to be living it. Sarah Wilson argues that this sense of disconnection is ironically what unites us, that deep down we are all feeling the same itch for a new way of living. This one wild and precious life opens our eyes to how we got here and offers a radically hopeful path forward. Drawing on literature, philosophy, the wisdom of experts, and her personal journey, Wilson weaves a one-of-a-kind narrative that lights the way back to the life we love. Along the way, she leads us through a series of wildly awake practices for reconnecting with ourselves and our purpose. The time has come to boldly, wildly imagine better. We are being called upon, individually and as a society, to forge a new path and to find a new way of living. Will you join the journey? I'm super excited to read this book. For me personally, this past year has been unreal. I for the world to return to something that is more familiar, and I also feel scared and nervous and know that there's like the call is there to be answered. Do you know what I mean? So I'm excited to read this. I think it will be a good read in the next couple of months. The last book that I have is my Book of the Month Club book. So I got this month. It's my first month signing up for Book of the Month Club, and I'm really excited about it. This book is called The Final Revival of Opal and Nev by Donnie Walton, and it's a novel. And when I was looking at the description of it, they likened it to Daisy Jones and the Six, which is one of my favorite books I've read this year. But it was one of my favorite books. It just, for me, was a transcendent book, one that I'd never read anything like it, and so I'm very excited to read this book. And this book is about black musicians, and so I'm really excited to read that too. So I'll read the inside. So Opal is a fiercely independent young woman pushing against the grain in her style and attitude, a black punk artist before her time. Coming of age in Detroit, she can't imagine settling for a comfortable job. Despite her unconventional looks, Opal believes she can be a star, so when British singer-songwriter Neville Charles discovers her at a bar's amateur night, she takes him up on his offer to make rock music together for the fledgling Rivington Records. In early 70s New York City, just as she's finding her niche as part of a flamboyant and funky creative scene, a rival band signed to her label brandishes a Confederate flag at a promotional concert. Opal's bold protest and the violence that ensues set off a chain of events that will not only change the lives of those she loves, but also be a deadly reminder that repercussions are always harsher for women, especially black women who dare to speak their truth. Decades later, as Opal considers a 2016 reunion with Nev, music journalist S. Sunny Shelton seizes the chance to curate an oral history about her idols. Sunny thought she knew most of the stories leading up to the cult duo's most politicized chapter, but as her interviews dig deeper, a nasty new allegation from an unexpected source threatens to blow up everything. Provocative and chilling, The Final Revival of Opal and Nev features a backup chorus of unforgettable voices, a heroine the likes of which we haven't seen in storytelling, and a daring structure, and introduces a bold new voice in contemporary fiction. So I'm so excited to read this book. It is written very similarly to Daisy Jones and the Six. It's an interview style, but I love books about music, and I think including black voices and black women's voices in that is so exciting. So